What advice would you give to me about long-term relationships?
Let me know him early. All right, let's go on. Don't keep him away from me.
My mom is an executive coach.
It's only a little part of what I do. I'm a whole person coach. And I coach established leaders and emerging leaders. Through coaching, I realized that maybe that was a blind spot. Maybe I've got something I need to work on as well.
You living in Singapore.
Well, first of all, let me just say Singapore is my happy place.
Aww.
And I thought to myself, which one is better? To actually take a leap of faith, experience something I'd never experienced before, or sit in my little corner and kind of like say, you know what, I don't want to move because I'm okay where I am and this is the best life ever.
When you look at relationships today, what is something that concerns you?
I think the frivolity of it all. As we go through generations, values just seem to be slowly, maybe not even slowly, but I see values being eroded.
Yeah. What's something you prioritized in your 20s that you now realize was not worth your energy?
What did I prioritize? Maybe what I deprioritized.
What did you deprioritize? Hey real ones, and welcome to a new episode of Real with Rayo. I'm so excited to be recording today. You can see the studio is different. I'm in a different setting. I am in Singapore, and for those of you who don't know, my mom lives in Singapore. So I am recording this episode with a very special guest, the woman who birthed me. My fabulous, loving, phenomenal mom, who I'm just so happy to be a guest on my podcast. How are you feeling, Mom?
Excited. Hi, Rayo. Excited.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being a guest on. And it was no questions asked when I asked you. You're like, yeah, sure, I'll do it.
I didn't have a choice, darling.
Yeah, to be honest. To be honest, yeah. If you said no, I'd have been like, don't you love me?
Was I allowed to say no?
No, but I'm glad you got the script. You got the script. Okay. So, actually, you know what? I think we should start with you living in Singapore, because every time I tell people my mom lives in Singapore, they always ask me, what's Singapore like? How did you get the opportunity? Because you've been living here for 9 years now, right? It'll be 10 years.
No, it'll be 9 years in August.
Okay, 9 years in August. So how did that come about?
Well, first of all, let me just say Singapore is my happy place.
Aww.
I totally love it. But how did it come about? So in 2016, I was working in a bank as head of HR in that bank in Nigeria. I just maybe wouldn't bother to mention the name of the bank, but in the financial services industry. I had been working there for 2 years, and a role in the global office opened up, and I was asked if I would like to come and work in Singapore in that role. So the hiring manager had before then observed me on a project as head of HR in Nigeria. It was a strategic people plan. And whatever I did, he seemed to be happy with. And he asked if I could come work with him in Singapore. And that just brings up a whole lot of learnings, which I'm happy to share if you want to go down that lane.
Yeah, absolutely. Because one of the many things I love about you is how adventurous you are and how you really hone in on the opportunities that are presented to you and you make the best out of it. So at the time, I mean, you were obviously married, you have 3 kids.
And I'm still married.
Yes. You are. And
before your daddy comes after you.
My bad, no smoke. But I share at the time, my little brother was 2 or 3.
He was 4.
Oh, he was 4.
Yeah.
Okay. So what were the thoughts that were going through your mind when you thought, okay, I have a new job in Singapore, I have a 4-year-old, I have 2 teenage, was I teenager?
Yeah.
Okay, 2 teenage daughters, I have a husband, my whole life is set in Nigeria. How did that make you feel?
So let me backtrack a little bit. So 2 years before this opportunity came, I actually visited Singapore I was
Oh.
invited for a country head of HR academy.
Yeah.
So all of us country heads of HR, we gathered together in Singapore. And I remember I checked into my hotel at Changi Business Park, and I got into the room, and for some reason, I was just overwhelmed, and I said, I could live here.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know this.
And then I walked, maybe I just hadn't shared before. And then I quickly checked in, dropped my stuff, and then took a walk. There was a shopping mall near the walk. And I was walking around and just observing everyone. And I just felt I could live here.
Wow.
And as you know, I love to travel, right?
Yeah.
66 countries and counting. But Singapore was one country I just thought, you know what? I'd love to live here. It was
Yeah.
just very surreal. And so to your question, that kind of like helped shape my decision, because where you would experience maybe a fear or anxiety initially, I had none. I was like, this is a place that I think I would love.
Yeah.
So it was now about logistics, thinking about, so what happens to the family? What happens to schools? Will my husband support me? What sort of decisions would need to be made for that to happen? And I guess if there was any form of fear, right? Because this is Real with Rayo, isn't it?
It is.
It was a fixed term contract to work in Singapore.
Right.
And I thought to myself, what if I leave and after that terminates, I come back and there's no job for me, right? And I thought to myself, which one is better? To actually take a leap of faith, enjoy or experience. I wasn't even sure if I was totally going to enjoy it, but experience something I'd never experienced before and learn from that experience and kind of like have that exposure, rounded international experience, or sit in my little corner. Well, maybe it was a big corner, but sit in that comfort zone and kind of like say, you know what, I don't want to move because I'm okay where I am and this is the best life ever.
Yeah.
I mean, the life I was living before I moved to Singapore, I think was my best life ever, but I didn't know that there was a better life ever, if you know what I mean. So I would have robbed myself or all of us of that opportunity, and I'm so glad that I didn't.
Yes. And I'm so glad that you took that opportunity regardless of where you were at in your life.
Yeah.
And it's really inspired me. I always tell you, I still want to work outside of London at some point because one, I just think it's amazing to see how things are done differently. We get so used to being confined into our routines and our natural environment because it's comfortable, right?
Yeah.
But then there's something quite challenging and adventurous and inspiring about living in a different country.
Absolutely.
And I would love to do that. I'm just seeing how my little brother has grown here. It's all he knows in a way. Like it's his comfort, you know? So the fact that a child can be comfortable in a place that they're not originally from is amazing. It is wonderful.
And as you speak, it reminds me of something, you know, like a rubber band or even a hair tie.
Yeah.
You know, if it's just on the table, it's pretty useless, right? It can look good, but it's pretty useless. But when you stretch it, it then becomes useful. And I kind of like feel that stretching means going outside of your comfort zone and being exploratory, right? And seeing what usefulness and what learnings you can gather from that experience. I'm so happy I took the leap.
I love that. And speaking about being exploratory, you have been to 65 countries.
66.
Oh, my bad.
And counting.
I stand corrected. 66 countries. All 7 continents.
Yes.
All 7 wonders of the world. Was that I mean, I know it was intentional, but what birthed that travel bug?
It makes me emotional to share, but let me share.
Okay.
Initially, and as you know, your grandma is from Jamaica, your granddad's from Nigeria, and so London was their home where they had met. And so all our trips as we were growing up were all the time to London and sometimes to America, one time to Jamaica, but it was London, London, London. And I can't count how many times I visited the UK and I had you there. But then when my brother passed on, I then began to think to myself, he's no longer in the UK. What am I going to sit in the UK for 3, 4, 5 weeks doing? And I no longer had a home to just kind of like say, okay, I'm going to live free of charge here.
Yeah.
So it became an issue of me having to pay for a hotel to stay in the UK. Right. And I thought, why would I pay for a hotel stay in London when I could pay in a hotel to stay in France or in Spain? And that kind of like got me thinking, okay, why don't every half term, and you might
I
remember this,
remember,
yes,
yeah.
every half term I'll come and pick you. We'll have a week and we'll be like, okay, what country should we go to? Let's go to Rome. Or what city?
Or
Let's go
Madrid,
to Rome. Yeah, we
yeah.
do Rome, we do Madrid, we do Paris. And I was like, well, we could take the train or a
Yeah.
short flight. And then I just realized that I loved, the more I did it, the hungrier I became. I really love seeing people across cultures and just understanding people more, visiting places. It became an addiction. For real. It became
No,
an
it
addiction.
definitely is, to the point where it was my mom's 55th birthday. I hope you don't mind me saying your age.
Well, you said it. What can I say? No, but let me tell you
Sorry.
something.
Yeah.
I've got to the point in my life where I'm happy to own everything now. A while ago, I would have said, well, I don't want the whole world knowing my age, but come on. I'm so happy to be alive and to be here. And I'm ready to own everything now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. It was her 55th birthday 2 days ago, and I wanted to surprise her for her birthday. And as you now know, my mom loves to travel. So initially, I'd made an agreement with my little brother, and I'd booked my flight. Well, I think I told him before I booked my flight, and I was like, this is when I'm planning to come. Please make sure like everything is okay and don't tell mom. But I needed someone to have a heads up, right? Just in case,
Right.
he's at school or whatever he's doing. And my lovely brother kept his word, did not tell
He
my mom.
did.
Yeah, that's
So
made me
impressed
Yeah,
because
that's
we're
really-
so close.
Yeah, and that's also made me really trust him, because I'm like, okay, you can keep a secret. He's 13, so you know how it is. But then I also thought, what if she's not even here? Like, I
could take
surprise
off.
her, I come all the way and she's not here. It's going to be really awkward. So at some point when we're talking about logistics and you're talking about your birthday, I was like, okay, I think I have to just say it and spill the beans. But yeah, that's how much you travel.
And that
was like,
made me emotional. I was
did.
weepy. I was so, so, so moved. And thank you so much for coming, Arayo.
of course, love
I don't know
you.
if I can do a perfect heart, but I
Yeah.
practice.
No,
I
it's
love
cute.
you. Love you to bits and more.
Aw,
I'm
love
back
you, Mom.
together.
Love you, Mom. Okay. So I'm 26. Don't think I've ever said it on the podcast, but I am 26. And being 26, I don't know about how you guys feel, like real ones, but it's a very transitional year because you're fully an adult, but then you also understand that there's so much ahead of you, but then you very aware that every choice you make right now, you will be able to see the consequences in the next couple of years. And that has left me feeling a lot of pressure, to be honest, but also feeling very, just very grown in a way. You know how they say, I don't know if you've heard this, but at 25, your frontal lobe has fully developed when you're 25. So that's why they really talk about being an adult at
So you
25.
kind of like feel your bakes.
I really, it is a real thing, because even the things that I would not really care about or just not really give a lot of thought, now I'm like, okay, wow, I need to do this, because if I want this, this has to be in place, and this, like, I just find myself being a lot more grown.
Yeah. How does it feel though?
It's nice because I do feel in control in some aspects, because I truly believe that whatever I put my heart to, and if I'm diligent and consistent, I think it will work out with the grace of God. And seeing your life and how you've worked hard and, set a foundation for yourself and follow through.
Yeah.
I just think there's no other way it could go. But then it's also made me sometimes scared, because I think, what if it, not what if it doesn't, because I truly don't really even give that thoughts, a lot of thoughts. It's more so, what if I'm not doing enough, or what if I'm making some mistakes, or what if there are blind spots that I'm not seeing.
Yeah.
But I think it's just the part of me that likes to be in control in some way. I've also realized I do like to be in control, maybe because I'm the boss and I'm the fresh child. But I do like to be in control, and I like to have a plan. I'm not a type A person. I don't know if growing up you would agree. I'm not someone that was always very like this and this and this and this. I was more like free flowing, creative.
Chilled. Yeah.
but
Quite
then
easy to get on with as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then I think now I'm becoming quite type A. I'm like, what's the plan? Okay, what are we going to do? So my question is, can you take me back to when you were 26? How did you envision your life then?
I just want to say how you kept these questions to yourself and didn't share. We left the same
It's
house
the
and I had
real with
no
Rayo.
idea what you were going to ask me. But how did I feel at 26? Well, I'm going to spend probably some seconds going down memory lane now
Okay.
because you may remember, or I not remember, but I told you I graduated at 21. So I had my
Oh
first
yeah.
degree at 21, became a chartered accountant at 22, started working before I turned 23. So by 26, I was pretty set. I studied accounting and I was working in finance roles. I had done a management accountant role and I was in a financial accountant role at 26.
Wow.
Yeah. And at 26, because at 27, I was actually heading the team. So I think I must have been I was heading my unit, definitely. So at 26, yeah, I felt very responsible. I was living alone in Lagos in a 3-bedroom apartment. And if you know Lagos and how hustle and bustling that is, it's a lot, right? Because I had been living with my brother, but he moved to South Africa. So I was driving my own car. I was driving to work, driving back. So I was in every way a full adult, right? And I will drive from Lagos to Ibadan, which is about an hour and a half, at the weekend once a month if I felt lonely or wanted to see my parents. So I felt like I think I did feel in control. But when you feel in control, there's also a huge sense of responsibility that can make you feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So I think to some extent I was super busy, so it didn't give me the chance or the opportunity to worry or start to feel like I hadn't made the right decisions. I was busy. Yeah, I was busy. I was a full adult, responsible for my life, full circle.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I was also enjoying it.
How would you describe yourself then?
I was assertive, knowledgeable, decisive. I think in me there was the drive to succeed. And I was also very result oriented. Right. I'm trying to remember me outside of work, and even that is a bit difficult because I spent a lot of my time working. I was very fortunate to have a boss who trusted me and treated me like I was even more experienced than I actually was.
Oh my gosh, mom, are you saying my life? Because I feel
Really?
like my boss is the same way. I feel very empowered at work. I think I said this to you a couple of days ago. It's really nice to have a boss that trusts you and just lets you get on with it.
Yeah.
It does make you feel more confident
Yeah.
and in control, which is nice.
I think so. And even more empowered. My boss had my back. He was the financial director. He's passed on now. May his soul rest in peace. I
wow.
just heard he passed on
Amen.
I just heard a month ago that he passed on a couple of years ago. But he had my back. So it gave me that confidence. He trusted me. And because he had my back, I knew that if I got stuck, I can always go and say, you know what, can you show me the ropes here? I'm just fudging it. Can you just show me the ropes? So I think he gave me a confidence. And growing up, also, my father had given me that confidence, almost an audacity to kind of like say, you know what, I'm empowered. I can make life is what I make of it with the grace of God, of course. So I think I was in that space. Yeah.
What hopes and dreams did you want for yourself at 26?
This is interesting because at 26, I wasn't so much, and I'm trying to recall as I speak, I wasn't so much thinking about the future. I think I was actualizing my hope. Because at earlier on, as I said, I qualified as a chartered accountant at 22, right? So I remember at 21, I'll be doing the ICANN exams. That's the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria exams. And I will be studying, and sometimes I will just stop and I'll just begin to dream when I become a chartered accountant. I will earn more. I'll be able to afford stuff. I will be able to utilize all that I have learned. So it was kind of like my dream to own that space. So at 26, to find out that I was already owning the space was really interesting, because I remember at 20, because then fast forward just a little bit, at 27, I was leading the account. We called it the accounting department. I was leading the accounting department of the organization. It was in manufacturing. And I was also asked to be the company secretary for a year. So, and then I started doing my MBA at 26. I remember I started doing my MBA at 26.
Wow. MBA is crazy.
Yes. So I was doing my MBA. I was, in charge of the finance team. And I had just been asked to be the company secretary because the former company secretary had left. So it wasn't so much me thinking about the future, to be honest, right? This is Real with Rayo. It was me actualizing the past and actualizing, the past and living in the present and just giving my all to my current situation. Yeah. I think it was only maybe sometimes I'm in the kitchen cooking and I'll think, what will it be like if I had a baby in the living room and I had to run, my baby's crying and I had to run and take care of the baby as well. So I did, those thoughts came to my mind, but I wasn't sitting there thinking, oh yes, I'm going to get married and I'm going to have children. I was super busy.
I know that's right. I know that's right. Did you ever feel that you had to choose between motherhood and ambition?
No. Well, let me say this. I'm also very homely, as you know.
Yeah.
So I had this daydream, and because I couldn't have prepared for this interview or this chat because you didn't tell me anything.
Yeah.
So thoughts are coming back. But I remember having this dream that when I'm pregnant with my first child, I will stop working. And I will give my first 5 years to having kids because I thought, okay, I'll have 2 kids. They'll probably be close in age. And I'll spend my 5 years being a stay-at-home mom and just bringing them up to that stage. And then I'll go back to work. So it wasn't like I felt that I had to choose. The thought of being a mom was just, oh my gosh, it was just so mind-blowing that I wanted to dedicate time to just enjoy that. Yeah.
The more you speak, the more I realize how similar we are because that's exactly what I want.
Oh, really?
I've always said,
I didn't know that.
Yes. I don't think I've ever said it out loud to anyone, but one of the reasons why I think I'm trying to work as hard as possible now is because when I do have kids for the first 5 years, I don't want to. Yeah, I don't think
You'd
I
never
want to
said
work.
that to me
yeah,
before.
I just want to be present and be involved and have things I do at the side, but I don't want to be working like full time.
It does have financial implications, so
Yeah.
it's something one needs to be ready for, both you and your
Husband.
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting.
And it's something to talk about before marriage.
Right. Yeah, true, true. To make sure we're aligned on that. Yes. And we're in a position to do that as well. Yeah. Okay. Want to talk about marriage because that was a perfect segue.
Okay.
Actually, let me circle back. In your opinion, what kind of person do you think one needs to be before they get married?
I think you need to know yourself. So someone who's self-aware, right? Because and thankfully in this day and age, there's a lot more spotlighting on self-awareness, right? Because I think when you know yourself, you're in a better position to know what you want for yourself in terms of a partner, in terms of a future, but you're also able to choose better. Right? Because when you know yourself and knowing oneself, and a lot of people say, know yourself, be ready, and that means you won't really need somebody. No, I think when you know yourself, you kind of like then know what areas you would need to be best complemented in. Right. And that gives you an opportunity to kind of like know, oh, I'm strong in this area. So I'll probably be better partnered with someone who is strong in other areas as well. Because if the person is only strong in the areas where I'm strong in, and when I say strong, I mean have strengths, then what happens to that dual weakness that then gets multiplied? So I think knowing oneself is important. I think also being prepared emotionally, psychologically. You and I were chatting a while ago, and it's like, especially if you've lived alone for a while, getting married is a big adjustment.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder because I was telling my mom a couple of days ago, growing up, I loved sleepovers. I still love spending time with my friends, but they
Mm-hmm.
always joke, even when we all visit each other and have like a late night. I don't care if it's 2 or 3 a.m. I am booking my Uber and going home. I
Oh.
want to be in my own bed. I want to use my own skincare products. I want to be comfy, wear my pajamas. And I
Yeah.
sometimes worry that it's because that's what I'm used to. I've lived, even though I haven't lived by myself, but I've had my own room, I've had my own bathroom, I've been in boarding school.
Yeah.
I'm just very aware of what I like, that I think being with someone, while I am quite, I like companionship. I do think
Yeah.
I'm very, oh yeah, let's be together.
Yeah.
I can also be very, I'm good. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
in the mood. I
I
want to
think,
be alone.
you know what, Araya, I think just realizing that there will be an adjustment period, and for both of you and the other person
Yeah.
as well, right? And even if you're used to cohabiting, so to speak, with other people and all of that, it's not the same person or the same people that this person you marry will be.
Yeah.
So it's about understanding that there'll be an adjustment, understanding that you'll have to rub off on each other, grow on each other, and there'll be irritations as well, right? And just understanding that what brings you together is much stronger than all the irritations or, those little annoying
Yeah.
things that come in the way.
Is there anything you wish you knew about love and marriage before you got married?
There's a lot.
Oh.
There's a lot. Where would I start from? I think one thing, and let me share, one thing I heard someone say was, oh, people of similar backgrounds should marry each other. And I remember thinking, oh my God, that's not good. How could you even say that? But there's a lot of value in that, right? Where people, and I'm not talking, I'm so for cross-cultural marriages and international marriages. I love that. So that doesn't suggest that because you're from different countries, you're not from the same background. So
Yeah.
I don't, I just, so that I don't get misinterpreted or misquoted. But I think just having backgrounds in terms of what's important to you. Is this person a person of faith? What kind of values does this person have, and how was this person brought up? And is this somebody who will have a vision that is similar or in line with the vision that I have? Or even if it's not in line, is it something that will inspire me? Is it something I'm willing to support? Right? So understanding the person's background, I think, is super important, right? And I tell you why, because if you get married to someone who's from a totally different background, has different values, different visions, or even standards for themselves, then there's a conflict already. And remember, I talked about an adjustment period. So if there's already a foundation of conflict, then it just makes the adjustment even more crinkly.
Yeah.
Right? So definitely, that's one thing about understanding. And I think doing a lot more talking, a lot more. When I say talking, it's not just going out on dates, right? But I'm talking about a deep conversations about what you want out of your life, even about children, about how you want that to happen, about finances. So having a deep relationship and courtship, I think, is also important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only way I know how to do it. I'm such a deep conversation
and that
lover.
takes time as well.
Yeah, true.
So I wouldn't subscribe to anyone who says, oh gosh, I met this person, I'm so much in love. We met each other 3 months ago and now we want to get married.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're really intending to get married for the rest of your life, I would like to pull back and say, you know what? Spend a little while longer getting to know each other and just going deep, having those conversations. Yeah.
What advice would you give to me about long-term relationships or marriage?
I'll say make sure the person is your friend, first of all. Yeah. I think if you feel like the person is just a romantic partner without having a deep friendship with the person, it just may not stand the test of time. Right. Because I think that if you're friends with each other, then just like you, and you have amazing friends. Oh gosh, shout out to all your friends. They all know who they are. But you have amazing friends. And I don't for 1 minute imagine that you guys don't have conflict, although I never seem to hear about any conflict. But I think that's because your friendship is so deep and you're so accepting of one another that even if you may have conflict, I've never heard you say, Mom, no, don't mention this person's name. I'm not talking to this person, or this person and I have fallen out. No. And so you want to be in a relationship that you have that level of friendship or even deeper or greater, such that, of course, there'll be those annoying things and you fall out, but there will be nothing that will threaten that bond and that union. So these are some of the things, I would say, I would advise you.
I think conflict resolution in any relationship is so important because, to be honest, my core friendship group, the girls you're referring to, we actually don't really argue, strangely enough. I'm sure we annoy each other. We bicker and be like, why did you say that? Or like, that's weird. But I remember I have had like disagreements with someone. I'm not going to like mention it, but we're still like best friends now or anything. But then I think one thing we both learned in that is like conflict resolution. And it's really nice to also have the other girls have our best interest at heart and be able to bridge that, even though
instead of trying to pull
I was
you
even
apart.
I was like, don't, if you're not going to tell, you know how I can be. But they all still were very patient and trying to still nurture that bond. So it's one thing I've learned as well. Conflict resolution is important because it takes emotional maturity and also understanding the bigger picture that ultimately our friendship and our bond is bigger than whatever disagreement we're having at this stage.
I have one quick piece of advice. Let me know him early. All right, let's go on. Don't keep him away from me. Don't just let me overhear you speaking to him on the phone. Let me know him early.
Why are you calling me out on the phone?
No, I'm just saying, girl. Just saying.
Oh my gosh. Okay, to be honest, I think because I respect you so much, you and Dad and our family, and it's very sacred to me, right?
Right.
I just think I also want to make sure that the person I introduce to you is worth it, you know, because sometimes relationships can be quite fickle. Sometimes you understand someone further down the line and you just think, oh, that was a waste of my time. Or
this
maybe
is
I shouldn't
the matured, deeper Rayo speaking. I get it.
Yeah.
I wanted to say I will make him sacred, but I really don't have the power to do that.
Soon. Okay. When you look at relationships today from just your perspective, what is something that concerns you?
I think the frivolity of it all. Yeah. Because I think that as we go through generations, values just seem to be slowly, maybe not even slowly, but I see values being eroded. Such that relationships become fickle, they become frivolous. And I wonder, with all the fanfare, and we're good at fanfare, right? With all the fanfare and all of that, I'm wondering, okay, so what's going to happen later down the line? And I think that's the thing that I observe. And I don't know if everyone who wants to get married nowadays is actually planning to stay married for the rest of their life. Or whether they're thinking, you know what, this is a nice to have, we'll do it, we'll see how long it lasts for, and then, But we are Christians, we're people of faith, and so the intention has never been, oh, I'll get married and then after a few years it won't be marriage anymore. And that's the intent, that's the hope. And I do understand that circumstances change, things happen, people go their separate ways and get divorced. But from the onset, the intent really is for the rest of my life, for the rest of your life. That's how it is.
Because they're vows you take before God and before your family. You should take them seriously. Okay, got that. I would like to segue into career because I know we touched on it at the beginning, but you are like just an icon.
Amen.
You know, you really are. And you have transitioned from working corporate full-time to now being a full-time executive coach. And I just want to ask you, what are some consistent threads you've seen through your career?
Hmm. These being personal traits, are you talking about personal traits here
It
or
could be
just being
both, whatever comes to
consistent
mind.
threads? I think, first of all, it starts from a place of purpose
Mm.
and a place of value. And that's how it all started for me in terms of this transition, even to becoming a executive coach, right? I realized along my journey that I'm happiest when I'm serving others, when I'm helping others fulfill their purpose, whether it's being the head of hospitality in church or the head of, newcomers or welcoming or throwing a party. And I throw a party. I mean, we
Yeah.
have had a good time and we still continue to have. But I noticed that nurturing is something that makes me feel very fulfilled, even whether it's supporting the less privileged or a person even of privilege and potential. So one of the things that I'll say is a common thread is finding that purpose in whatever role that I take on, right? And not just finding the purpose, but then being as good as I can be
Right.
at it. Right. So there's a piece of excellence. And I say excellence, it's not a destination. I'm in constant pursuit of excellence.
Yeah.
Nobody actually gets there. But these are some of the things. And then commitment, dedication. But I think also understanding the business. So when you think about, when you put a business lens on it, you kind of like say, okay, what is this business in service of? And whether you're working for an employer or it's your own business, you have to understand why it exists. What is its purpose? What does it serve to do?
Right.
And then everything then starts to,
Work
come
around
off
it.
from
Yeah.
that purpose. So what do you keep at the core? And as you keep that purpose at the core, you're also keeping your client at the core. And then things kind of like just start to ripple around it. Yeah.
What practical tips would you give to anyone navigating the corporate world?
The whole lot. First of all, understand what your vision is. Because if you don't understand what your vision for yourself is, you'll get swept up into the corporate world and it gets busy. We talked about when I was
Yeah.
26, right? I wasn't even thinking ahead. I was just thinking of owning my space, delivering. And probably if I was thinking maybe one step ahead or something, it was like that. But I think, and that's where coaching actually adds a whole lot of value because visioning, I would say, find out and be clear as to what you want for yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. And keep it at your core. Because every day, day to day, you working, right? When you get to work, you'll find out that things do happen. But make sure that as they're happening and what it is you're investing your time is in, it's in service of your core. You're not derailing because it's little steps away from your goal that constitute that
Yeah.
derailment, if that's the word.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or that become derailers, right? But ensuring that everything you do is kind of like speaking to your purpose and your passion,
Yeah.
right? It's important because purpose and passion need to be aligned.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you start having burnout, you start having misalignment and all of that. So that's important. I think also then deciding or understanding that the world is a very small place. I didn't actually realize as much earlier in my career, but just understanding that the world is a very small place and it's so interconnected. And so enjoy that journey, make meaningful, beautiful connections. And but keep the result at the core because I find out in the corporate world that a lot of people do not know how to balance both.
Yeah.
So you have people who are enjoying the journey so much so that the results are falling off the cliff. They don't even exist. And they kind of like need to be prodded and encouraged and all of that. And you're having this massive performance conversation with them. And you find some people who are result oriented will deliver, but have forgotten to enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
So finding that balance, I would say, is enjoy the journey. And also, the Bible also says that we should love each other, right? So treat people the way you would like to be treated. Understand from the time that you start work that you're building a legacy.
Right.
So be clear as to what that legacy would look like. And once you're clear, then all your actions become intentional, even though they're seamless and not rehearsed. But they're kind of like intentional to help you to build that legacy, to help you live with purpose and passion, and to help you enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Beautifully said.
Oh,
I love
thank
that. I
you.
was also going to give a tip, but your
Right. Go on.
tips,
I'd
no,
like
your
to
tip
learn.
perfectly encapsulated what I was going to say.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I've learned so far is it's really important to make time for your hobbies and have a passion outside of work. Because I think we get so swamped into the day to day, and it takes up so much time and effort that by the weekend, I can speak for myself, I'm exhausted. Sometimes I don't even have my social battery at full. I just want to sleep, watch Real Housewives, order something nice. I don't even want to cook, right? I just want to chill out, not do anything. But then I think that's part of the rat race. It's, you know, just thinking about, okay, now I have to get back to work, but making time for hobbies. And I remember one of my previous managers, she would always book like a yoga class after work, or like have piano lessons. And I always admired that, because she would ask me, what are you doing this evening? And I'll be like,
I have an appointment with my duvet.
No, literally eating snacks and watching my shows. But then her always having something to do made me realize, oh, actually, maybe I should meet up with my friends after work and have a matcha or do something nice or work on Real with Rayo. Just have something.
I think there's an important piece that I do want to mention, and that's about being kind.
Yeah.
And oftentimes when we hear be kind, we think it means be kind to the next person, be kind to our neighbors. And I do mean that. People that we meet along the journey, you never know what this next person will become, or if you will need the person. And even if you don't, you've deposited in the person that which will help them to be a success, right?
Yeah.
But also be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
And understand that the Arayo is not just work.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing. I remember, and if I may just share, there was a time I was in an organization I wouldn't mention. It was in manufacturing. And I had, I wouldn't call her a boss, but she was senior to me. I think she was my boss for some time. She was senior to me and much older. And I remember things would happen at work because it was quite an intense work environment. And she'll just bat her eyelids and I'll be like, what is it? She said, and one day she said to me, these people don't realize that work is just a tiny fraction of my life. Yeah. And I thought, and for me, it was like, okay, it was most of my pie.
Yeah.
Right? But I think having the right perspective, placing the right perspective on work just helped her not magnify the issues that were happening at work.
Oh my gosh,
yeah. And I realized that she lived quite a full life. She was a socialite and everything, and lived quite a full life. But she was a happy person as a result, because she had understood what sort of value and what quantity, what proportion of her life she would put into work and the work issues. And I admired that.
That is very key, actually. Yes, very, very key. And my team as well are really good at that. Like, they don't expect you to work at the weekend. They don't even expect you to always log on late. Work late.
So late, yeah.
Sometimes because projects are individually like driven, if I have something to do, I will work late. But it's not pressure that I feel externally. They're like, no, log off. Like, go out, go to the pub, do something. They're like, what are you doing? Which I think at first, because I was so passionate about succeeding and coming from my previous team where they were more old school like that, in the sense that they wanted you to work late. They would applaud you for doing that.
Oh, right.
Right. Coming from that and seeing how chilled and laid back, we're like, no, log off.
I think targets have to be realistic as well.
Right.
If targets are unrealistic, then people have to meet them. Then you burn yourself out trying to meet them. So I think that organizations need to support employees to have this sort of life, because it's one thing for me to say, oh, I'm passionate about your well-being, I want you to have a full life, and then I give you an unrealistic target and I say, how are we doing? There's a contradiction there. That's right?
So true. So true. What advice would you give to anyone trying to build wealth in the corporate world? Because I have to say that is something you've done excellently, and I'm at a point where, my frontal lobe has developed, so I'm like, okay, I need to be thinking about this. And I think it's something that it's a challenge for a lot of people my age, because there's also a lot of pressure externally, like even the economy and like your pay, and we all have big ambitions, and we go on social media and we see what life could look like, but then you're looking at your reality and you're thinking, how do I get from step A to F? Let's not even go to Z. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I would say start with what you have.
Okay.
I'm actually getting tired and bored of people telling me, oh, I don't earn enough and that's why I can't save. Or that's why I know the global economy is challenged right now, right? Let me not go into that. But as long as you do not have direct control over it within that small space of time, you have to make what you have work.
Yeah.
And I think what is happening to a lot of young people is that, again, you talk about it, there's some sort of peer pressure or even pressure from social media to kind of like start to live that life that it probably took me 20 years to build, to live. You want to start living it now. So I would say start with what you have a vision. And it's okay to have big dreams. I think it's actually fine. But you see, if I start with what I have, then I say to myself, okay, let me first of all go basic before I talk about the big dreams. If I only have this amount of water in a glass, right? This amount of water in a glass, I'm going to say to myself, my glass is not full. I can moan about it not being full, or I can say, you know what? Half of what, or a third of the water in this glass is going to go into the reservoir, or is going to go into my reserve tank, because I'm looking for a full tank.
Yeah.
Right? And then you might say, but how can a third of, so how are you going to survive on this 2/3? And then that's where the thinking starts, the creativity, the challenge. Because I'm going to say, okay, realistically, it means I'm going to look at my needs first before I look at my wants.
Right.
And by the time I catalog my needs, I'm going to ask myself, what's remaining? Right? Hopefully, there'll be something remaining. But when I then look at my wants, right? Because I do have wants, I'm not going to start operating at rock bottom because I'm not earning enough. Then I say to myself, okay, but I must deliver. I'm not going to live like that.
Yeah.
Where are my multiple streams of income? And that's where you start thinking, okay, the money that I've put in that reserve, possibly if I loan it out to somebody, I get some interest, right? So that money is growing, possibly not at the rate at which I want because it's only a small amount of money. But what other skills do I have? What other income generation channels do I have that will not compete or be in violation of my terms and conditions of employment, of course.
Right.
But then you start to build. It helps you to start thinking out of the box. What sort of alliances, partnerships, collaborations can I possibly get into that will help me? And when I get that, right, I'm not now, maybe the glass now fills up to here. I'm not now saying, oh, that means I have this amount to play with, to spend. I'm thinking, okay, it comes up to here. So half of that is going into that reserve because then it's going to grow more money.
Yeah.
And it might seem very simplified, right? And it might seem like, oh, that means I'm going to be waiting for ages. But things happen quicker than one thinks, and time flies.
It does.
Yeah, and before you know it, you're building something, and money attracts money. It does.
True.
Yeah. Before you know it, you're building something. It's the initial years of building. You kind of like think, will this ever amount to much? And then after a while, you realize, there's a tidy sum growing here. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to transition into the last segment of the
Oh, are
episode.
we at the last segment already? Okay.
Yes,
I've been enjoying this.
Oh, I'm so glad. Same here, likewise.
Uh-huh.
And I wanted to mention to my audience, if you don't know, my mom is an executive coach. I did say that in the beginning, but I remember at uni, the first time she coached me, I was in my final year at uni. I remember exactly where I was, in my bedroom. We had a coaching session. And at the time, I was trying to set goals for my graduation and what I wanted to achieve before I left uni. And I had a very challenging time at uni. I can touch on that in another episode. But one thing I was very clear on was I needed to graduate with at least a 2-1, especially because I had some failures. I felt very like at least, come on, I'm going to make this time worthwhile, right? I'm
Yeah.
just not going to leave anything less than a 2-1. So I remember we had a coaching session with my mom, and it was quite funny because she was actually being a coach and not my mom. And that was one of the things that really inspired my goal setting
Oh, I'm glad to hear
traits,
that.
and
Yeah.
also made me realize how important it is to compartmentalize what you want. Because with me, and this is something as I've noticed as a common thread, I always see the bigger picture. I don't always see like the little chunks that I need to. I just know ultimately this is what I want.
What I want. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm clear
And you're
on
good
that.
at communicating that as well.
Yes, yes. But then the little baby steps that compound into the bigger picture,
Yeah.
I don't always actualize, but coaching was the beginning of that. So I wanted to ask you, how has coaching been transformational for you as a coach, but also as someone who's also you've had coaching lessons from others, right?
Yeah. Coaching session. Well, first of all, let me say that in as much as I'm an executive coach, it's only a little part of what I do.
Yeah.
A sub part, I'm a whole person coach. And I coach established leaders and emerging leaders, including students and undergrads, right?
Yeah.
So just to say that I'm a whole person coach. I think one of the beautiful things, the benefits of coaching that I realized was that it wasn't just preparing me to coach others. It was helping me deepen my own self-awareness. And through coaching, some of the things that you asked me, what tips would I share? What would I tell my younger self? That sort of thing. A lot of it is through coaching that I realized that maybe that was a blind spot. Maybe this may be how I'm coming across. Maybe it's not really on that person. Maybe I've got something I need to work on as well. Or maybe this is my strength that I haven't been maximizing.
Yeah.
And so, oh my God, I didn't realize I had this potential. Or maybe I was limiting myself. And then through coaching, I realized that these are self-limiting beliefs. I'm not big on self-limiting beliefs. As you know, I'm like one of those that think everything is possible and the world is a stage. But coaching has helped me deepen my own self-awareness and broaden it as well. And then it's just helped me deepen my understanding of people.
Yeah.
And it's also helped me, and it's interesting and something that I would like to openly share, that people who you think who are already established leaders, right? Who are ringing the bells of the, London Stock Exchange and Global Stock Exchange. When you talk to these people, you realize that they're human beings and they have their vulnerabilities and their insecurities.
Yeah.
And so just understanding that each person has what they struggle with and where they need support.
Yeah.
And it's been super fulfilling just being able to support someone to maximize their potential, realize their own ambitions, and deepen their self-awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely love that. Okay. The next couple of questions, you can either make them rapid fire or elaborate if you feel the need to. What's something you prioritized in your 20s that you now realize was not worth your energy?
I couldn't do rapid fire for that because I have to really think. What did I prioritize in my 20s? Maybe what I deprioritized is what I should say.
What did you deprioritize?
My social life in my 20s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So maybe I prioritize work over my social life much more. So I think life is in stages. So maybe prioritizing work in certain seasons of your life has its benefits.
Yeah.
But I think I prioritized work and even after a while, family. And I didn't really have time for my friends. Now I love that I have time for my friends. It's so joyful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I wasn't your daughter and you were meeting me for the first time today, woman to woman, what would you say to me?
Hello, beautiful.
Because
I love your energy, not just as my daughter, but hey, you're beautiful in and out.
Oh, thank you.
And what I love about you, I think you're just so easy to get on with. And even if you weren't my daughter, just being in this podcast and finding it so easy to talk with you is beautiful. I remember saying it to you in the car, right? That I'm going on nothing. What are we going to talk about?
Yeah.
You were like, Mom, don't worry. And it's been lovely.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay. So, as you know, at the end of all of my episodes, I always end it with questions surrounding ikigai. So, if you don't know what ikigai is, it's the Japanese concept that translates to the purpose of living. It's a Venn diagram,
Mm-hmm.
and there are different questions. So, the first one, which you can answer rapid fire, what do you love?
Supporting people.
That's true. Yeah, makes sense. What are you good at?
Almost everything I lay my hands to do.
Oh my
I'm good
gosh.
at being
Mhm.
I'm good at being a coach. I'm good at being a global HR leader. I'm good at being a mom.
Yes, I love that.
I'm good at being a. I'll let my husband speak about the spouse bit, but yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. What is something that you can be paid for other than the things that you already do?
probably things like giving financial advice, like event management, like even a wider range of consulting, that sort of
I
thing.
agree. I
Yeah,
really
yeah.
think so. And what's something you think the world needs?
Kindness,
Yeah,
kindness. Yeah,
I love
yeah.
that.
And I'm glad that I have more time for it. I'm calmer, so I'm even able to. I have more time and space to even be kinder. Because that's another thing in terms of learning. When you're under intense pressure, and you're very result oriented, you may not have as much time as you would like to give to just being present and holding space for people and being kind. You
Yeah,
don't even have space to hold for yourself, talk less of someone else.
yeah.
But when you're able to get to that place where, hey, I've got my space and I can give to others and I can be kind, it's just a beautiful space to be in.
I love that. And
Yeah.
now the final question before we wrap up. What is something about me that my audience may not know or that you want to speak to as my mom? Because I think it's quite beautiful that I have my mom on the episode.
Yeah.
So, what's tea?
You're a totally, totally nice person.
Aww.
You're responsible. You want to succeed. You care about your siblings. You're a great firstborn. You're a great firstborn. God Almighty knew how He ordered my children. You're a great firstborn. And I'm really, really proud to have you as my daughter. You're also very personable. I haven't met. So, hey, you take my friends away from me, right? I'm speaking on the phone, and then I'm like, Araya, I say, give her the phone. And then I'm like, give me my friend. So you're a joy to be with. And I think it speaks to your name, Araya Olua, the joy of the Lord. And indeed, you represent the joy of the Lord.
Aw, thank you so much, Mom.
Yeah.
This made me a little emotional, but I'm not gonna do that. But it's been
And
an
you're emotional. Yeah, I don't know where those tears come from. Sometimes I'm like, okay.
no, I really am. Like yesterday night, I was on the phone and I was getting so emotional, and I was like, Araya, that's why I had my session with ChatGPT.
I'm like, is it a learned behavior? Because when you were younger, you weren't this
I
emotional.
think as I've gotten older, I just am very sensitive to my environment as well. And like, yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
But it's been an absolute honor to have you on the podcast. Real ones, thank you so much. If you don't know, my mom's business is called Acres Plus, so please check it out. All the information will be in the show notes. And don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I appreciate you. I love you, and I'll see you in my next one.
Oh, love you, darling.
Bye.
Thank you.